The hall of the Galactic Fleet Academy was vast and shining. Hundreds of alien cadets stood in line, waiting for their turn at the evaluation scanner. The machine pulsed with blue light, its rings rotating slowly, humming with hidden power. Every cadet had to pass this test before they could enter the fleet. It measured strength, discipline, and most of all, the mind. The alien cadets whispered to each other while they waited. Tall insectoids with glowing eyes, reptilian warriors with plated skin, and slim beings with silver robes all shared the same thought. This was the day they would prove their worth, but their eyes often drifted to the back of the line. There, standing taller than most, but wearing a plain grey cadet uniform, was the only human. His name was Jax Carter. He kept his head straight, his fists clenched behind his back. He had heard the whispers all year. The aliens laughed at him, mocked him, called him Earthborn. To them, that word meant weak, primitive, a death-world species with no place in the stars. Jax said nothing. He let their words burn into his memory, promising himself that he would answer them one day. The first cadet stepped into the scanner. The rings spun faster, the hum grew louder, and then a soft tone filled the air. The light turned green. The council members, sitting above the hall, nodded with approval. Potential acceptable. Next, one elder said in a voice like gravel. One by one, the cadets entered. Green, blue, safe, normal. Each passed. Each allowed to join the ranks of the fleet. The hall was filled with cheers and proud smiles. Finally, the moment came. The murmurs grew louder when the human cadet stepped forward. Watch this. The primitive will fail. He will break the scanner. Earthborn has no place here. Jax ignored them and walked calmly to the center platform. He stood straight as the rings of the scanner began to glow. The machine's hum turned deeper, echoing across the chamber. The council members leaned forward, their eyes narrowing. The light started to shift. Blue at first, then green, then something darker. The hum turned into a sharp, rising pitch. The air trembled. The scanner's rings shook as if they could not contain what they were reading. Suddenly, the entire hall was drowned in a flash of red light. Sirens blared and warning symbols flashed across every display screen. The alien cadets gasped and backed away. None of them had ever seen the scanner turn red. Red meant danger. Red meant impossible. Jack stood frozen in the center, his jaw tight, his chest rising with each slow breath. He felt the machine digging into his mind, pulling memories and instincts from deep inside him. Images of fire, endless battles, soldiers refusing to fall. The will to survive at any cost. The council chamber erupted in shouts. This is not possible. No cadet has ever scored like this. Terminate the scan before it. Breaks the system. But the machine did not stop. The rings cracked with lightning, sparks flying. The readout flashed across the chamber wall. Unclassified potential. Threat level, extreme. The elders' faces turned pale. Even the reptilian general, known for his iron discipline, could not hide his shock. Impossible. He is human. The cadets in the hall stared in silence, their laughter gone, their eyes wide with fear. The boy they had mocked now stood in the center of a storm, his very presence forcing the most advanced scanner in the galaxy to collapse. The machine gave a final scream of metal and light, then shut down with a violent crack. Smoke drifted across the platform. Jack stepped forward, breathing heavily, his eyes shining with fire. The council chamber fell quiet. One elder spoke in a voice filled with dread. Lock him down, now! Guards in black armor rushed into the hall. They surrounded Jax, weapons raised, their orders clear. Jax raised his hands slowly, his mind racing. He did not understand what had just happened, but he saw the fear in their faces. Not the cadets, not the guards, the council. They were afraid of him. He opened his mouth to speak, but the reptilian general slammed his clawed hand on the console. His voice thundered through the chamber. This human will not walk free. Restrain him at once. If the prophecy is true, he is more dangerous than any fleet we command. The cadets gasped, whispering in panic. Prophecy? What prophecy? Jax was grabbed, his arms forced behind his back, restraint snapping into place. He did not fight, not yet. He looked up at the glowing eyes of the alien council, his voice calm but filled with steel. "What did you see in me?" No one answered. The guards dragged him from the hall, the sound of chains echoing with every step. As the doors closed, the council chamber filled with hushed voices. The red scanner had never lied, and for the first time in centuries, it had declared that humanity was a threat no one could ignore. Jax was pulled into the shadows of the academy, the alarms still screaming. Behind him, the elders whispered one chilling order: the Earthborn must never graduate. Jax Carter sat in a cold metal chair, his wrists locked in heavy restraints. The interrogation chamber was dark, lit only by a pale glow from the ceiling. A thick glass wall separated him from the figures watching on the other side. Their eyes were sharp, glowing in the shadows. He could not hear every word, but the whispers carried enough for him to understand. He was not on trial. He was not even being questioned yet. They were arguing about him. Through the glass, he saw the elders of the council, leaders from different species, their robes heavy with power and history. They leaned close to one another, their voices sharp with fear. If humanity rises again, the galaxy burns. Jax's heart slammed against his chest. Again. That word echoed in his mind. What did they mean? The insectoid elder clicked its mandibles. He must be contained. His reading is a threat level higher than any cadet before him. No fleet can risk such a power, the reptilian general snarled. Do not be blind. This is not just about the cadet. This is about Earth. We buried its history for a reason. Buried? Jax narrowed his eyes. They knew something. They were hiding something. He tried to pull his wrists free, but the restraints dug deep. He had trained his body to endure pain, to keep standing when others would fall. But this was not a test of strength. This was a game of secrets. A guard stepped closer, holding a staff that crackled with blue energy. The meaning was clear. Stay silent, stay still. But Jax's mind was not still. It raced. Every insult, every mocking laugh from the other cadets now made sense. They were not mocking his weakness. They were afraid of his potential. They had always known more about his people than he did. On the other side of the glass, the council leader spoke. His voice was low, ancient, filled with bitterness. 200 years ago, humanity nearly destroyed this galaxy. They were a death world species that refused to kneel. When cornered, they fought to the last soldier. Their fleets burned, but not before they crushed entire coalitions. We covered their history with silence, erased their victories, and locked Earth under watch. The younger races must never learn the truth, another elder hissed. And now this boy stands here. A reminder. The prophecy warned us. One day an Earthborn would awaken the fire again. The chamber fell silent. Every word cut into Jax like a blade. His people had not been weak. They had been warriors, fighters who had forced the galaxy to fear them. And now, he realized, the Academy had never been about giving him a chance. It was a cage, a way to measure him, to contain him, and to end him if needed. The glass wall hissed, sliding open. The reptilian general stepped inside, towering over Jax with heavy armor that clanked against the floor. His yellow eyes burned with authority. You will never graduate, Earthborn. You will never lead, never fight, never fly a fleet ship. The scanner has spoken. You are a threat. Jax stared back, his jaw set, his voice low but steady. Then why train me at all? Why let me into this academy if I was never meant to succeed? The general's lip curled into something close to a snarl. Because we had to know. The prophecy cannot be ignored. And now we have our answer. The general raised his clawed hand. Guards entered, dragging a strange machine into the chamber. Its surface pulsed with violet light, wires coiling like snakes across the floor. Jax felt the hairs on his arms rise as the energy grew stronger. The insectoid elder's voice carried through the chamber. The device will strip him down. We will test him, mind and soul. If he survives, we will know his limits. If he fails, the threat ends here. The guards forced Jax onto the chair at the center of the device. Metal clamps locked around his arms and chest. He gritted his teeth as the machine's coils tightened, glowing brighter with every second. He looked up at the council, fire in his eyes. "You're afraid." "You should be. You buried the truth, but the truth doesn't stay buried forever." The reptilian general leaned close, his voice a hiss. "You will not walk out of this chamber alive." The machine screamed to life. Lights flared, energy roared, and Jax's vision filled with burning skies and endless battlefields. It was not just a machine. It was a test. A simulation designed to break him. The last thing he heard before the world dissolved into fire was the council leader's cold order. "Begin the test of extinction." Jax's body went rigid as the chamber vanished, and in its place appeared a battlefield of alien warships blotting out the stars. The test had begun, and survival was no longer optional. The battlefield stretched in every direction, endless and burning. Jax Carter staggered forward, his boots sinking into cracked earth. Above him, alien warships loomed, blotting out the stars, their cannons glowing with the promise of destruction. He blinked hard, gripping his chest. A moment ago, he had been in the chamber, trapped inside a machine. Now he stood in a nightmare. The air smelled of ash. The ground trembled as titanic explosions rippled across the horizon. A voice echoed through the sky, cold and merciless. "This is the test of extinction. Prove your worth or be erased." Jax clenched his fists. This was not real. It was a simulation, but the fire that licked his skin, the screams in the distance, the weight of fear pressing on his chest, it felt real enough to kill. The ground shook again. Out of the smoke marched alien soldiers. Dozens at first, then hundreds, armored figures with glowing weapons. Their eyes were blank, their movements perfect. They were not individuals. They were constructs, pieces of the test, designed to crush him. Jax's heart pounded, but he did not run. Running meant death. He scanned the field. Broken structures jutted out of the ruins, walls, towers, fallen wreckage, cover. He sprinted toward the nearest wall as the soldiers opened fire. Plasma bolts scorching the air around him. He slammed against the stone, rolled, and grabbed a shard of metal lying in the rubble. It was jagged, heavy, and sharp enough to cut. Not a gun, not a blade, but it was something. The first soldier charged. Jax ducked under its swing and drove the shard into the joint of its armor. Sparks burst and the figure collapsed. Jax ripped the weapon free, his breath steadying. "All right," he muttered under his breath. "If this is your test, then I'll play it my way." The swarm kept coming. Jax fought, his movements fueled, not by training manuals, but by instinct. He used the ruins to his advantage, forcing the soldiers into tight spaces, breaking their formations. He grabbed their weapons, turned them against the others, and never stopped moving. The council, watching from beyond the glass, grew tense. Monitors filled the chamber, showing every angle of the simulation. The reptilian general leaned forward, claws digging into the console. He adapts too quickly. "The constructs are falling faster than expected," the insectoid elder clicked nervously. "Increase the pressure. Push him beyond his limit." Inside the test, the sky screamed open. Warships descended lower, unleashing torrents of fire. The ruins collapsed under the bombardment. Jax dove, rolled, and sprinted through falling debris. The air itself burned, every breath like fire in his lungs. He collapsed behind a shattered wall, blood dripping from a cut across his forehead. His arms ached, his body screamed for rest. Yet his eyes burned with the same fire that had carried his ancestors through death-world storms and endless battles. "Is this it?" he shouted into the smoke. "This is your test? To break me, you'll have to try harder." The battlefield shifted. The ruins melted into a barren wasteland, nothing but black sand and bone. Far ahead, a massive alien titan rose from the ground, its body made of twisted steel and shadow. Its eyes glowed red, and its voice thundered across the empty field. Humanity must not rise again. The titan raised its weapon, a cannon the size of a tower. The ground cracked as it charged. Jax's chest tightened, fear clawing at his mind. No weapon in his hand could stop something like this, but fear was not new to him. He remembered his training back on Earth, the endless runs, the drills, the punishments. He remembered every laugh, every insult from the alien cadets, weak, primitive, Earthborn, his lips curled into a defiant smile. "I'll show you, Earthborn." He sprinted forward, dodging the Titan's first blast, the ground exploding behind him. He climbed shattered rocks, weaving through fire, never stopping. The Titan swung, but he was already gone, sliding beneath its massive legs. Then he saw it, an exposed joint at the base of its spine, glowing faintly, a weakness. He leapt, driving the stolen plasma blade deep into the crack. Sparks and fire erupted as the Titan roared, its body twisting violently. The battlefield trembled. The Titan collapsed, crashing into the sand with a sound like thunder. Jax rolled free, coughing, his body shaking. The sky tore open again, filled with red light. The voice returned, sharper now, edged with disbelief. Simulation limits exceeded. Human subject displays unclassified potential. In the real chamber, alarms blared. The machine controlling the simulation shook violently. Monitors overloaded, filling with static. The elders shouted, their voices frantic, "Shut it down!" His mind is overloading the system. Inside, Jax fell to his knees, his vision swimming. The battlefield cracked like broken glass. Pieces of the world shattered and floated upward. His breath came in heavy gasps as the simulation collapsed around him. He forced himself to stand, refusing to fall, even as the world dissolved into light. His last thought before everything went black was simple, cold and sharp. They wanted a threat. Now they have one. The chamber exploded in sparks. The restraints broke. Jax stood free, smoke curling around him, his eyes burning with defiance. The council stared in silence. The human had not only survived the test of extinction, he had broken it. The academy halls were silent, but Jax Carter moved quickly, his boots making no sound on the polished floor. Smoke still clung to his uniform from the destroyed chamber. His body ached, his arms were bruised, but his mind was sharp. He had broken their test, and now he knew one thing for certain. The council feared humanity. He needed answers. The guards had scattered when the machine exploded, confused and terrified. Jax had slipped into the shadows, using the chaos to vanish. Now he was deep inside the Academy's restricted wing, where only officers and council members were allowed. The air smelled different here, colder, filled with the hum of powerful machines. Doors lined the corridor, each sealed with alien codes. But Jax's eyes locked on one, larger than the rest. Its frame was black, etched with silver markings, and above it glowed a single word in galactic script. Jax's pulse quickened. He approached, pressing his hand against the scanner. For a moment the door refused him. Then with a sharp hiss, the panels slid open. Inside was darkness. The room was a vault, walls lined with data crystals glowing faintly. At the center a console pulsed, waiting. Jax stepped closer, his heart hammering. He had no training with alien systems, but something inside him whispered where to begin. His fingers danced across the controls. The screen lit up with files, maps, records, battle logs, and at the top, stamped with heavy red seals, Jax opened the first file. Holograms rose into the air, showing fleets locked in brutal war. Ships with human markings, sharp and angular, moving like predators through the void. Alien armadas surrounded them, hundreds, thousands of vessels. But the human ships cut through them with precision, burning worlds, breaking blockades, refusing surrender. Jax's breath caught. This was not weakness. This was not primitive. Humanity had once fought entire coalitions to a standstill. The next file showed soldiers in ancient combat armor. Human faces, scarred and fierce, holding their ground against overwhelming forces. Their battle cries filled the vault. Jax felt his chest tighten as he listened, a strange pride burning inside him. He scrolled deeper. Reports of human victories, alien defeats, and then, at the very end, a project file. A single entry marked Sol Defense Initiative. He opened it. A blueprint appeared, massive, terrifying, a warship unlike anything Jax had ever seen. It dwarfed the fleets in the other files. Its name glowed in ancient English, Atlas. Before he could study further, a sound cut through the vault. A low hiss, Jax turned. At the doorway stood a figure, tall and broad, scales glinting under the dim light. It was Kareth, his reptilian rival from the academy. The same cadet who had mocked him since the first day, calling him Earthborn with venom in every syllable. Kareth's yellow eyes narrowed. "So it is true. You broke into the forbidden archives." His claws flexed, sharp and eager. "I should end you now." Jax stood straighter, hiding his racing heart. "Why afraid of the truth? Afraid that your council lied to every cadet here?" Kareth growled. "The truth is poison. Humanity is poison. You are a danger to all of us." Jax clenched his fists. "No, the danger is the fear your leaders carry. They buried my people's history because they were afraid of what we could become. And now I know." Kareth stepped inside, the door sealing behind him. His shadow stretched across the vault. "Then this is where your story ends, Earthborn." The console flickered with warnings, detecting unauthorized presence. The holograms of human fleets vanished, replaced by red alarms flashing across the walls. Security would be here soon. Jax glanced at the data crystal labeled Atlas. It pulsed faintly on the console, like a heartbeat. He grabbed it, sliding it into his uniform just as Kareth lunged forward. The reptilian cadet struck with claws like blades, smashing the console. Sparks exploded, the holograms collapsing. Jax rolled to the side, barely avoiding the strike. The two cadets faced each other, the air between them heavy with fire. Kareth snarled. "I will kill you before you drag the galaxy into another war." Jax's eyes hardened. "You'll have to try." They circled each other in the vault, the glow of the alarms painting their faces red. Outside, heavy footsteps thundered down the corridor. Guards were coming. Time was running out. Kareth bared his teeth, claws raised high, while Jax tightened his grip on the stolen crystal. The first strike came like lightning. Sparks flew as the vault shook with the sound of battle. And just beyond the door, armed guards closed in. The academy courtyard was quiet under the twin moons. Pale light spilled across stone pillars and training. Grounds where countless cadets had once sparred. Now only two figures stood at the center, Jax Carter and Kareth, the reptilian warrior who had hunted him through the archives. The guards had been delayed by the vault's lockdown. The alarms had stopped. For now, the academy was still. But both cadets knew the silence would not last. Kareth's claws gleamed under the moonlight. His scaled muscles rippled with each movement, his eyes glowing yellow with hunger for battle. He raised a pair of plasma blades that hummed with deadly energy. "You carry a forbidden crystal," Kareth hissed, his voice low and sharp. "The council will execute you, but first I will take your life. No human will rise while I still breathe." Jax stood tall, his hands bare, the stolen crystal hidden inside his uniform. He had no weapons, no armor, only the will that had carried his ancestors through endless battles. He looked Kareth in the eyes and spoke calmly. "You've mocked me since the first day. You called me weak, primitive Earthborn. Tonight, you find out what that really means." Kareth's lips peeled back in a reptilian grin. "Then fight me, human. Die with honor under the moons." The duel began. Kareth charged first, blades flashing in the night. Jax dodged sideways, the plasma cutting a deep scar into the stone floor. The heat singed his arm as he moved, but he kept his focus sharp. He had no weapon, but he had speed, instinct, and a Deathworlder's endurance. Kareth spun, striking again and again, each blow faster than the last. Sparks flew as blades tore through pillars. Jax ducked, rolled, and used the terrain, never meeting power with power. He remembered his training back on Earth. Keep moving, stay alive, use your environment. He grabbed a broken staff from the ground, a discarded training weapon. Against plasma, it was useless. But in Jax's hands, it became an extension of his body. He deflected one strike, twisted the staff into Kareth's legs, and forced the reptilian back a step. Kareth growled, his tail lashing. "You fight like prey." Jax steadied his breath. "No, I fight to win." The two clashed again, circling under the moons. Kareth's strength was monstrous, but Jax's endurance was unyielding. Every strike Kareth delivered drained his energy, while Jax used less, waiting, watching. The duel stretched on, sweat dripping from Jax's face, steam rising from Kareth's scales. The air was filled with the hiss of plasma and the crack of staff against stone. Then Kareth fainted, slashing low before striking high. Jax barely raised the staff in time, the blade searing through wood. The weapon split apart, leaving Jax defenseless. Kareth's grin widened. Now it ends. He raised both blades for the finishing strike. But Jax was already moving. He stepped inside the attack, closer than Kareth expected, and drove his fist into the reptilian's throat. The blow staggered him. Jax grabbed one wrist, twisting with all his strength, forcing the plasma blade to the side. It cut deep into a stone pillar, locking for a moment. Jax wrenched the weapon free and turned it. Now he held a blade. Kareth roared, charging again, but Jax slashed, sparks spraying across the courtyard. The two fought in close quarters, strikes colliding with brutal speed. Finally, Jax spun low and drove the hilt of the blade into Kareth's chest. The reptilian cadet stumbled, falling to one knee, his breath ragged. The fight was over, but Kareth did not beg. He lifted his head, blood dripping from his scales, and spoke with grim resolve. "You may defeat me, Earthborn, but you will never defeat the Council. They will never let you live. The galaxy itself fears your kind." Jax tightened his grip on the blade, his chest heaving. He could end it now. One strike, and Kareth would never rise again, but he hesitated. From the shadows, the sound of boots echoed. Guards. Their voices carried through the courtyard, urgent and sharp. "Find him! Secure the Earthborn!" Jax stepped back, lowering the blade. He would not waste his strength on Kareth, not now. He turned and sprinted into the darkness, the stolen crystal pressing against his chest, the weight of its secret burning in his mind. Behind him, Kareth struggled to his feet, his eyes blazing with fury. He would not forgive this. He would not forget. Above the academy, massive alien warships began to rise into the night sky, engines glowing like angry stars. Their comms echoed across the city. Earthborn Cadet Jax Carter is rogue. All fleets prepare to engage. The academy skies burned with light. Enormous warships rose from their docks, their engines glowing like suns. Sirens blared across the city, warning every civilian, every cadet, every officer. One name echoed on every channel. Earthborn Cadet Jax Carter is rogue. Engage on sight. Jax sprinted across the landing platforms, his breath sharp, his chest heavy. The stolen crystal pressed against his chest pocket, glowing faintly as if alive. Guards poured into the hangars, weapons raised, their orders clear. "Stop him! Don't let him reach the ships." Jax dove behind a stack of fuel canisters, plasma bolts scorching the metal around him. He peered over the crates. The nearest hangar was filled with training fighters, sleek one-pilot ships used for combat drills. Not warships, but fast enough. If he could reach one, he might escape the blockade above. A shadow moved beside him. Jax tensed, ready to fight, but the figure held up their hands. It was Lyra, a slender alien cadet with silver skin and bright, piercing eyes. She had always been quiet, an observer, never joining the mocking laughter of the others. Now her voice trembled, but held no malice. "You're going to die if you run alone," she whispered. Jax narrowed his eyes. "Why are you here?" Lyra glanced at the guards closing in. "Because I saw what you did in the simulation. You're not weak. You're not what they said. I want to help." Jax studied her face for a heartbeat, then nodded. "Then follow me." They broke cover together. Plasma fire rained around them as they sprinted across the platform. Jax shoved Lyra into the cockpit of one fighter while he leapt into another. Fingers flying across the controls, he powered the systems. The engines roared, shaking the hangar. Guards shouted, "Shut those fighters down!" "Now!" Jax slammed the throttle forward. His ship shot out of the hangar, climbing hard into the night sky. Behind him, Lyra's fighter followed close. Searchlights from towers tracked them, and ground cannons opened fire, filling the sky with deadly light. Above, the blockade waited. Dozens of alien warships formed a wall across the stars. their weapons primed. The comms crackled with the voice of the reptilian general. "This is General Kalor. The human must not leave the academy. All units converge. Destroy him." Jax's jaw tightened. He banked sharply, weaving between streams of plasma fire. His training fighters shuddered, but he kept control, instincts guiding him where manuals never could. Deathworld reflexes. He twisted through gaps no other cadet would dare attempt. 2 enemy interceptors broke formation and closed in on him. Jax pulled hard, cutting power to his engines for a split second, letting the fighters overshoot. He reignited the thrusters, swinging behind them. With a squeeze of the trigger, he fired. One interceptor exploded in fire, the other spiraled out of control. Lyra's voice burst over comms. "How are you doing that?" "Instinct," Jax replied through gritted teeth. "They trained us for rules. My world taught me survival, but survival grew harder with each passing second. More ships broke from the blockade, swarming toward him like a net closing in. The Council was not letting him escape. Jax's fighter took a hit, alarms screaming as smoke filled the cockpit. He coughed, gripping the controls tighter. He refused to fall. Not now. Ahead, the stars shimmered, the warp gate, a corridor of light, the only way out of the system. But the path was blocked by 3 massive cruisers, their guns glowing with deadly energy. Lyra's voice cracked with fear. "We can't break through that." "It's impossible." Jax's eyes locked on the gate, fire burning inside him. "Nothing is impossible." He scanned the battlefield, his mind racing. The blockade's formation was tight, but he saw it, the faintest weakness, a gap in their pattern, a death trap to anyone else. To him, it was a chance. "Follow me," he ordered. He cut low, engines screaming, weaving through debris and fire. Enemy ships closed in behind him, firing relentlessly. Plasma tore past his wings, each shot a near miss. He pushed his ship harder, the frame rattling under the strain. The cruisers ahead charged their cannons, energy built, glowing brighter than the sun's. One shot would vaporize him. Jax gritted his teeth. Not today. At the last moment he rolled hard, diving between the cruisers. Plasma fire ripped past, shaking his fighter. He pulled every ounce of speed from the engines, every instinct screaming at him to keep moving. The warp gate expanded before him, its light pulling him in. Behind, the Council fleet scrambled, too slow to stop him. The cruisers fired, but their shots missed by inches, tearing into each other instead. Explosions rippled across the blockade. Jax's fighter shot into the warp corridor, Lyra's ship right behind him. The stars stretched into lines of light, the universe folding away. For a moment there was silence, only the hum of the warp. Jax leaned back, sweat dripping from his brow. He had done it. He had escaped. Lyra's voice was quiet. "Where are we going?" Jax reached into his uniform, pulling out the glowing data crystal. Its light pulsed in rhythm with the warp. He stared at it, then answered. "Home." The fighters dropped out of warp. Before them floated a graveyard of ancient ships, broken and silent, their rusted hulls marked with the flag of Earth. Among them, one massive silhouette stirred, its reactor flickering with the first signs of life. The warp tunnel spat the 2 fighters into silent space. For a heartbeat there was nothing but stars. Then the shadows appeared, colossal wrecks drifting in the void, dead and broken. Jax's breath caught. His HUD lit up with hundreds of signatures, derelict hulls, scattered debris, shattered warships. Their steel carcasses stretched for miles, silent witnesses of a forgotten war. Each bore the same faded insignia, the blue and white crest of Earth. He whispered into the comms. "The lost fleet." Lyra's eyes widened on her screen. "These ships, they're human, but they're thousands of years old. I thought Earth had no fleet left." Jax gripped the crystal tighter, its glow pulsing in his chest pocket. He could feel it humming now, as if resonating with the graveyard around them. His ancestors had fought here. This was their last stand, and something was still alive. From the darkness, a massive silhouette stirred. Unlike the drifting husks, this warship moved with purpose. Its surface was scarred, its armor blackened, but its reactor pulsed faintly. Like a heart refusing to stop beating, the name etched across its bow read, ESS Valiant. A comm signal crackled suddenly, ancient and distorted. Identify. Earthborn signature detected. State your designation. Jax froze. A ship this old should have been dead centuries ago. Yet here it was, calling him. This is Cadet Jax Carter, Earthborn, Alpha Academy, he answered cautiously. Who are you? Static filled the channel. Then a voice came through, calm yet heavy with age. We are what remains of the last Earth fleet. We have waited for you. Lyra stared in disbelief. That's impossible. These ships should be dust. No crew could survive this long. Jack shook his head. Not crew. AI. Earth's last warships had cores, self-learning systems to keep them alive. As if in answer, the Valiant's engines flared brighter. Other wrecks in the graveyard flickered too, systems groaning to life. Ghost ships awakening after centuries of silence. The crystal in Jax's hand burned brighter, sending a surge of energy through the cockpit. The Valiant's voice deepened. The crystal you carry, it is our key. Earth's legacy. With it we can rise again. Jax's heart pounded. He was standing on the edge of something colossal, something his people had hidden away from the galaxy. But Lyra's voice trembled with warning. Jax, if the Council finds this place, they'll unleash everything they have. They'll destroy the fleet before it awakens. As if summoned by her words, sensors screamed. Dozens of warp signatures bloomed behind them. The Council's ships, they had followed. On comms, the cold voice of General Kalor echoed across the void. Earthborn, you cannot run forever. The lost fleet will be your tomb. Jax's stomach clenched. The blockade had not stopped him. The duel had not stopped him. But now he was trapped between the Council's armada and a graveyard of sleeping giants. The Valiant's voice thundered in his ears. Insert the crystal. Awaken us fully, or perish with us. Jax looked at the Council fleet advancing, warships stretching across the stars. Plasma cannons glowed, targeting him. Then he looked at the Valiant, its ancient hull trembling, waiting, begging to live again. Lyra's voice was sharp now. Jax, if you use that crystal, there's no going back. You'll bring the Council's fury down on Earth itself. Jax's hands shook. Every choice weighed heavy. Trust the ghosts of the past, or surrender the crystal and die here. The Council ships advanced, their shadows blotting out the stars. Time was running out. Jax unbuckled his harness. He pulled the crystal free, its glow flooding the cockpit. It vibrated in his hands, alive, aware. With a deep breath, he whispered, "For Earth." He launched from his fighter in a short shuttle pod, streaking toward the Valiant's docking bay. Enemy fire lit the void, chasing him, but Lyra stayed behind, weaving her fighter to draw fire away. "Go, Jax!" she shouted over comms. "Don't stop!" The pod slammed into the bay. Jax tumbled out, clutching the crystal, sprinting through dark metal corridors, lit by dying lights. He reached the ship's core chamber, a massive ancient reactor thrumming weakly, like a heart on its last beat. The core opened as if it recognized him. Jax raised the crystal high. It pulsed once, twice, then shot a beam of light into the core. The entire ship trembled. Lights flared to life. Engines roared. Across the graveyard, other Earth warships groaned awake, their reactors sparking like a storm of rebirth. The Valiant's voice boomed, no longer weak. "We are Earth's vengeance, and we do not forget." The fleet of alien warships fired as one, their energy beams racing toward the awakening vessels. Jack stood in the reactor chamber, light blazing around him, as the ancient warship began to rise to battle. The alien fleet unleashed its fire. Dozens of beams streaked across the void, bright enough to blind, powerful enough to erase entire cities. They converged on the silent wrecks of Earth's warships, ships the galaxy believed dead for 1,000 years. Jack stood in the reactor chamber of the ESS Valiant, the crystal blazing in his hand. He jammed it into the heart of the core. For one impossible instant, the world held its breath. Then the Valiant roared. The ship shuddered, its reactor exploding with power not seen in centuries. Armor plates retracted. Energy shields surged alive, and cannons older than empires swiveled into position. Across the graveyard, other warships followed, one after another awakening, as if answering a call carried through blood. The alien beams struck, but instead of shattering, the Valiant's shields flared blue, deflecting the fire in a storm of light. The other Earth warships powered up in sequence, each shielding the next, forming a wall of defiance. Jax gripped the console, light pouring around him. He felt the ship's voice inside his mind now, clear and commanding. "We are awake. We are ready. Command us, Earthborn!" Outside, Lyra screamed over comms as her fighter dodged enemy fire. "Jax, the Council fleet is everywhere. We can't fight them all." Jax's voice rang with new strength. "We don't need to fight them all. Just enough." The Valiant's cannons unleashed their first volley. The void shook as energy bolts the size of cities tore through the front line of the alien fleet. One Council cruiser split in half, its wreck spinning into the darkness. Another exploded outright, its fragments scattering like burning stars. Lyra gasped. "Impossible. These ships are stronger than anything the Council has," the Valiant's voice thundered. "Earth does not build to impress. Earth builds to survive." The alien fleet answered with fury. Hundreds of interceptors swarmed, darting between the giant warships like hornets. Plasma fire raked across Earth's hulls. Shields crackled and strained. The fight was chaos. Old giants against a living empire. Inside the reactor chamber, Jax held onto the core, sweat dripping down his face. The crystal pulsed with every heartbeat, linking him deeper into the ship's systems. He saw through its sensors, felt the weight of its cannons, tasted the fire of its engines. For the first time in his life, he wasn't just a cadet. He was a commander. "Target their carriers," Jax ordered. "Break their wings." The Valiant obeyed. Massive batteries turned and fired. Enemy carriers burst apart in blinding detonations, their interceptor swarms scattering in confusion. The tide shifted, but victory came at a cost. On the flank, one of the awakening Earth battleships took too many hits. Its shields failed, its hull cracking open. The ship imploded, scattering wreckage across the graveyard. Jax's chest clenched. These weren't just ships. They were his ancestors' legacy. Every loss burned. On comms, General Kalor's voice thundered, furious and unyielding. "You dare defy the Council with dead relics? Humanity will be crushed again, just as before." Jax steadied his breath. "You're wrong. Humanity doesn't stay crushed. We rise." Kalor's flagship surged forward, larger and more advanced than anything else in the fleet. Its guns lit up, preparing to fire a beam powerful enough to pierce the Valiant's core. The ancient warship's AI spoke calmly. "Their flagship must fall, or all is lost," Jax nodded grimly. "Then we take it down." The Valiant powered its main cannon, a weapon dormant for centuries. Energy built in the ship's heart, channeling through the crystal, through Jax himself. He felt the weight of 1,000 battles pushing him forward. Lyra's voice broke in, urgent. "Jax! If you fire that weapon, the backlash could kill you. The ship is channeling through your body." Jax's hands tightened on the console. His vision blurred, veins burning with light. "Doesn't matter. If Earth is to rise, the Council must fall." The alien flagship unleashed its beam, a blinding spear of energy tearing through the void. Jax roared, pouring everything into the Valiant's core. The ship's main cannon fired. The two beams collided. Space itself seemed to tear apart. Shockwaves rippled across the battlefield, hurling ships aside. Light consumed everything, alien and human, ancient and new. Inside the core, Jax felt himself fading, his body breaking under the strain. But he refused to let go, not while Earth still had a chance. As the light cleared, the alien flagship cracked, its hull splitting apart. The Valiant drifted, its systems failing, smoke pouring from its decks. Jax collapsed in the reactor chamber, the crystal pulsing weakly beside him. A final voice whispered in his mind, "The battle is not over. Humanity's war has only begun." The screen cut to black.